High Admiral Kethera stood motionless before the massive observation window of the Varthol flagship Eternal Dawn, her four eyes fixed on the blue-green planet rotating peacefully below. Earth, the supposedly primitive world that had somehow managed to detect their cloaked scout ships 3 times in the past month. Something wasn't adding up. High Admiral, her second-in-command, Venril, approached with characteristic precision in his movements. The latest scan results are peculiar. Kethera's upper eyes remained fixed on Earth, while her lower pair shifted to examine the data pad Venril presented. Explain. The human's technological signature is inconsistent. Their visible infrastructure suggests early spacefaring capability. Chemical rockets, primitive satellites, basic fusion power. But our deep scans are detecting energy fluctuations that shouldn't be possible with their level of development. Elaborate, Kethera commanded, all 4 eyes now focusing on the data. Their power signatures occasionally spike to levels that would rival our own fusion cores, but then disappear completely. At first, we thought it was sensor malfunction, but the pattern is too consistent. It's as if Venril hesitated. As if they're testing our scanning capabilities, Kethera finished, showing us just enough to make us question, but not enough to confirm. The revelation hung heavy in the air. The Varthol Confederation had encountered thousands of emerging civilizations over their 50,000 years of space exploration. The pattern was always the same. Primitive species would detect their presence, panic, and either attempt to hide or show aggressive displays of their limited capabilities. None had ever demonstrated this level of calculation. Send the standard first contact package, Kethera ordered after a long moment of contemplation. Let's see how they respond to official diplomatic channels. The response came exactly 3 minutes later, faster than any species should have been able to decode and translate their complex message protocols. The holographic display materialized in the center of the bridge, showing a single human figure. The being was dressed simply, lacking any obvious military or political regalia, yet something about their posture radiated authority. Greetings, High Admiral Kethera of the Varthol Confederation. The human spoke in perfect Varthol standard, their pronunciation flawless. I am Director Chen of Earth's Defense Initiative. We've been expecting you. Kethera felt her scales bristle. No primitive translation algorithm could have mastered their language's subtle tonal variations so quickly. You seem well-informed for a species that hasn't left its solar system. The human's expression remained neutral, but there was a glint in their eyes that Kethera didn't like. Who said we haven't left our solar system, Admiral? Before Kethera could respond, Venril rushed forward. High Admiral, we're detecting energy signatures. Everywhere. They're decloaking. All around Earth, points of light began to appear. Space stations, defense platforms, and satellites that had been completely invisible to their sensors materialized like stars appearing at dusk. Some of the structures were clearly armed, but most were of unknown configuration and purpose. Impossible, Venril whispered. Their cloaking technology surpasses our own. As I said, Director Chen continued calmly. We've been expecting you. For quite some time, actually. We've watched your Confederation expand across the galaxy for the past 3 centuries. Studied your technology, your tactics, your culture. We had to be certain. Certain of what? Kethera demanded, struggling to maintain her diplomatic composure. Whether you would be good neighbors. Chen's expression hardened slightly. Your recent expansion has been aggressive. 23 species inducted into your confederation in the past decade alone. Not all willingly. Kethera's scales flushed dark with anger. The Confederation brings order and progress to primitive. Careful, Admiral, Chen interrupted. Your definition of primitive may need revision. As if to emphasize the point, new readings began flooding their sensors. Gravitational distortions, quantum fluctuations, and energy signatures that defied their understanding appeared throughout Earth's solar system. We chose isolation not out of necessity, but strategy, Chen explained. While your confederation expanded through force and assimilation, We expanded through understanding. Every probe you sent to Earth that mysteriously failed, we captured it, studied it, and learned from it. Every transmission you thought was secure, we decoded it centuries ago. Venrel's voice shook as he reported, "High Admiral, we're detecting technology that appears to be manipulating the fabric of space-time itself. Their capabilities may significantly exceed our own." "Then why reveal yourselves now?" Kethera asked, her anger giving way to a creeping dread. "Because you're approaching a crossroads," Chen replied. "Your Confederation's expansion is becoming unsustainable. Your recent resource wars with the Enixithal prove that. We're offering you a choice. Continue on your current path of conquest and face opposition you're not prepared for, or accept that there are powers in this galaxy beyond your current understanding and open diplomatic dialogue as equals." Kethera felt the weight of the moment. In all her years of service, she had never faced a situation like this. Her entire worldview, the Confederation's assumption of technological supremacy, was crumbling before her eyes. "And if we choose conquest?" she asked, already knowing the answer. Chen smiled, but it didn't reach their eyes. "Then you'll learn why we confined ourselves to one solar system. It wasn't to protect us from the galaxy, Admiral. It was to protect the galaxy from us." As if to punctuate the statement, every defensive platform around Earth oriented toward the Varthal fleet. Kethera's tactical display erupted with warning signals as their sensors detected weapons beyond their ability to classify. "You have one standard rotation of your flagship to decide," Chen said. "We'll await your response. And Admiral, choose wisely. Humanity has worked too hard maintaining peace to allow anyone to threaten it now." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Kethera turned back to the observation window, looking at Earth with new eyes. The peaceful blue-green world no longer appeared primitive. It looked like what it truly was, a carefully constructed facade hiding something far more powerful and ancient than the Confederation had ever encountered. For the first time in her career, High Admiral Kethera faced the prospect of writing a report to the Confederation Council recommending retreat. Not out of fear, she would tell herself later, but out of wisdom. After all, there was no shame in admitting when you'd underestimated an opponent, especially when that opponent had spent centuries ensuring you would. The Grand Council chamber of the Varthol Confederation buzzed with tension. High Admiral Kethera stood before the assembled leaders, her report on the Earth encounter projected in vivid holographic detail above the circular chamber. The council members' expressions ranged from disbelief to barely concealed rage. "Preposterous," Supreme Counselor Vextor declared, his ceremonial robes shimmering with agitation. "No species could have hidden such advancement. Our surveillance networks spanned the galaxy." "Respectfully, Supreme Counselor," Kethera responded, "the evidence suggests they've been intercepting and manipulating our surveillance data for centuries. We see what they want us to see." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Counselor Martha, the eldest among them, raised a gnarled hand for silence. "What do these humans want?" Before Kethera could respond, the chamber's security alerts blazed to life. In the center of the room, where only authorized Varthol projections should be possible, a human figure materialized. The Council's security forces raised their weapons, but their targeting systems failed to lock onto the projection. "We want what we've always wanted," Director Chen's avatar announced, causing several council members to recoil in shock. "To be left in peace. How dare you breach this sacred chamber?" Vextor thundered, rising from his seat. Chen's avatar smiled diplomatically. "Sacred. Interesting choice of words for a room where you've planned the subjugation of 17 species in the past year alone." Silence fell over the chamber. The humans shouldn't have known about those classified sessions. "Your civilization is built on conquest disguised as enlightenment," Chen continued. "We've watched you absorb species into your confederation, strip them of their autonomy, and extract their resources to fuel your expansion. We chose a different path." Martha leaned forward, her ancient eyes studying the human projection. Yet here you are, demonstrating power that could have stopped us centuries ago. Why wait? Hope, Chen replied simply. Hope that your civilization would evolve beyond conquest. Hope that we wouldn't need to reveal ourselves. But your recent aggressive expansion has forced our hand. Suddenly, every personal device in the chamber activated simultaneously, displaying data that made the council members' scales pale. Evidence of failed conquests, hidden resistance movements, and the true cost of their expansion flickered before their eyes. This is but a fraction of what we know, Chen stated. We're not here to threaten you, but to offer a choice. The Confederation stands at a crossroads. Continue your current path, and you'll face opposition unlike anything you've encountered. Choose diplomacy and genuine cooperation, and you'll find humanity to be a valuable ally. You speak of cooperation while demonstrating hostile capabilities. Vector spat. Chen's avatar turned to face him. If we were hostile, Supreme Counselor, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The quantum tunneling device your scientists are developing in Facility 7. We could have stopped it. The dark matter harvesting operation in the Nexus cluster. We could have shut it down. Instead, we watched and waited, hoping you would choose a better path on your own. Kethera watched as the council members processed this revelation. The humans hadn't just been observing. They'd been exercising restraint. As a show of good faith, Chen continued, we're providing data on a critical flaw in your quantum tunneling research. Your current approach would have resulted in a catastrophic failure within the next 3 years, potentially destabilizing an entire sector of space. New data streamed across the Council's displays, causing the chief scientists present to gasp in recognition. The humans were right. We're extending an invitation, Chen announced. Send a diplomatic delegation to Earth, not to negotiate our submission to the Confederation, but to discuss a new framework for galactic cooperation, one based on mutual respect rather than dominance. Martha's aged voice cut through the tension. And if we decline, then we'll remain in isolation, but we'll no longer stay silent about what we observe. Every species you approach for integration will receive a complete database of your true intentions and methods. Your days of uninformed conquest would be over. The projection began to fade, but Chen's voice remained clear. You have one standard month to decide. Choose wisely. After the human's disappearance, the council chamber remained silent for several long moments. Finally, Martha spoke again, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. It seems, my fellow council members, that we have much to discuss. And perhaps, she glanced at the data still displaying the near disaster they'd narrowly avoided. Much to learn. Kethera watched as the mighty Varthol Council, uncontested rulers of a third of the galaxy, grappled with a new reality. For the first time in their history, they faced a power that didn't need their approval, didn't fear their strength, and didn't want their empire. In the days that followed, as the council debated their response, a curious change began to sweep through Varthol space. Species long thought fully integrated into the Confederation began showing signs of independent technological advancement. Resistance movements emerged with surprisingly sophisticated capabilities. It seemed humanity had been doing more than just watching all these years. The dance had begun, and the Varthol were quickly learning they weren't leading. Supreme Counselor Vector stood in his private command center, surrounded by the most loyal military commanders of the Confederation fleet. The secure chamber, buried deep within an asteroid fortress, hummed with nervous energy as final preparations were made for what would either be remembered as his greatest triumph or his most catastrophic mistake. The humans believe they've outmaneuvered us, he addressed the assembled commanders, his scales gleaming with barely contained anticipation. Their arrogance will be their undoing. While they focus on our diplomatic delegation, our true strike force approaches from 11 different dimensional phases. Fleet Commander Zura, her battle-scarred scales testament to countless victories, stepped forward. The attack force is in position. Supreme Counselor, 100,000 ships, our most advanced stealth technology, and weapon systems modified based on all our research into human capabilities. "And the diplomatic delegation?" Vextor inquired. "Safely away from Earth, as ordered. They believe they're en route to begin negotiations." Zyra's upper eyes narrowed. "Though I must ask, are we certain this is wise? The humans have demonstrated. They've demonstrated parlor tricks and espionage." Vextor cut her off. "Yes, they've shown impressive technological capabilities, but they've never faced the full might of the Confederation. No single system, no matter how advanced, can withstand what we're about to unleash." The massive tactical display illuminated, showing Earth's solar system. The humans' defensive grid appeared formidable, but Vextor had spent the last month planning its destruction. Their attack would come from vectors the humans couldn't possibly defend against. "Begin the operation," he commanded. Across 11-dimensional phases, 100,000 ships of the Confederation's finest emerged from stealth, their weapons powered to maximum. The largest military operation in Varthol history had begun. The first sign that something was wrong came 3 seconds later. "Sir," a sensor operator's voice cracked with alarm. We're detecting our ships in all phases simultaneously." "That's impossible." Vextor rushed to the display. Somehow, the humans were tracking their ships across all dimensional phases, something that should have been theoretically impossible. But before he could process this revelation, something far more terrifying happened. Space itself seemed to ripple around Earth's orbit. Massive structures began emerging from what appeared to be pocket dimensions, installations that dwarfed anything the Confederation had ever built. Earth's sun flickered for a moment, and then a massive energy wave erupted from its surface. But instead of expanding outward chaotically, it formed into precise geometric patterns. "By the first ones," Zyra whispered. "They've engineered their entire star." Director Chen's voice filled the command center, though no transmission had been detected. "We warned you, Counselor. We chose isolation to protect others from us." The tactical display exploded with new data as the humans' true defensive grid activated. Each asteroid in the belt revealed itself to be an automated weapons platform. The gas giant's atmospheres rippled with energy fields that defied known physics. Even the radiation belts around Earth pulsed with purpose, forming barriers that existed in dimensions the Varthol hadn't even known existed. "All ships, open fire," Vextor commanded, desperation creeping into his voice. "Full barrage, all weapons." The Confederation fleet unleashed its fury, enough firepower to reduce a dozen worlds to ash. The attack simply vanished into the geometric patterns of energy surrounding Earth, absorbed and redirected in ways that made the most advanced Varthol scientists in the command center stumble backward in horror. "Your weapons are impressive," Chen's voice continued, unnaturally calm. "But we've had centuries to study them, to understand them, to learn how to counter them. Did you truly believe we would reveal ourselves without being absolutely certain of our capabilities?" The energy patterns around Earth's sun began to shift. Across all 11 dimensions, Confederation ships started reporting critical system failures. Not from damage. Their technology was simply being rewritten at the quantum level. "This is impossible," Vextor breathed. "No civilization could be this advanced." "Not impossible," Chen corrected. "Simply beyond your current understanding. We didn't hide our capabilities out of fear, Counselor. We hid them because we knew how others would react to them, how they would try to seize them, control them, weaponize them, and in doing so, bring destruction upon themselves." Across the battlefield, Confederation ships began powering down, their crews unharmed but their weapons and engines transformed into inert metal. The mighty attack fleet hung helpless in space, completely at the humans' mercy. "We could destroy your ships," Chen stated matter-of-factly. "We could rewrite your technology so thoroughly that the Confederation would be reduced to pre-space flight civilization. But that was never our goal." The tactical display shifted, showing new data. The transformed Confederation ships were being gently moved by human technology, arranged in a holding pattern far from Earth. "Your crews will be unharmed," Chen continued. Your ships will be returned to you, though you'll find their weapon systems permanently altered. Consider this a demonstration of both our capabilities and our restraint. Vector, his plans of conquest literally disintegrating before his eyes, finally found his voice. What? What are you? We are humanity, Chen replied simply. We are what happens when a species decides that understanding is more powerful than conquest, when they choose to advance through wisdom rather than warfare. Your attack force will be released in 48 hours. I suggest you use that time to reconsider your position on diplomatic negotiations. The command center fell silent as the implications of what they'd witnessed sank in. The Confederation, in its arrogance, had not merely awakened a sleeping giant. They had provoked a power that existed on a level they hadn't even known was possible. As Vector stared at the tactical display, watching his mighty fleet hanging powerless in space, he realized that the humans' greatest weapon wasn't their advanced technology or their stellar engineering. It was their patience. And they had just run out of it. The Varthol Confederation's Central Archives, a massive complex spanning an entire moon, had stood as a testament to their civilization's power for millennia. Now, its quantum-encrypted databases were being rewritten by a force that moved through its defenses as easily as light through glass. Director Chen stood in Earth's Strategic Command Center, watching as humanity's response to the Varthol's attempted attack unfolded across the galaxy. The vast chamber was filled with holographic displays showing thousands of simultaneous operations, each executed with precision that had been planned for centuries. Phase 1 is complete, announced Admiral Sarah Chen, the director's daughter and head of Earth's defense fleet. All Confederation military installations have been temporarily neutralized. No casualties. The director nodded, studying the strategic display. And Phase 2. Proceeding as planned. Our quantum infiltration teams are accessing their historical archives. Everything they tried to hide, every species they've subjugated, every resource they've plundered. It's all being broadcast across their own communication networks. Across Varthol space, the truth was spreading faster than their sensors could contain it. Centuries of carefully maintained propaganda were crumbling as their own secure channels betrayed them. But this wasn't just about exposure. It was about education. Begin Phase 3, the director ordered. In thousands of locations throughout Confederation space, dormant human technology began to activate. Not weapons, but something far more powerful: knowledge. Technical databases unlocked themselves, providing subjugated species with the means to reclaim their technological independence. Medical archives opened, offering cures for diseases the Varthol had deliberately left untreated to maintain control. Economic data revealed the true extent of resource manipulation that had kept entire civilizations dependent on the Confederation. In the Nexus cluster, where the Varthol had been conducting their dark matter experiments, automated human systems began implementing safety protocols that would prevent the research from destabilizing the region. On dozens of worlds, environmental restoration programs activated, beginning to reverse centuries of destructive mining operations. "Sir," a young operator called out, "we're detecting multiple attempts by Confederation forces to regain control of their systems." "Let them try," Admiral Chen replied with a grim smile. "Every attempt teaches them the same lesson. Their understanding of technology is fundamentally incomplete." The director moved to a different display, showing the Varthol Council chamber. The mighty counselors were in chaos as their secrets spilled across the galaxy. Only Elder Martha remained calm, watching the proceedings with ancient eyes that seemed to hold a glimmer of understanding. "They're mobilizing their reserve fleet," another operator reported. 30,000 ships emerging from their secondary bases. "No," the director corrected, "they're not." As if on cue, the reserve fleet's engines powered down. Their weapon systems transformed into harmless metal, just as the main fleets had. But this time, something else happened. Every ship's computer core began displaying a simple message: "Your technology is now under the protection of the Human Preservation Protocol." It will no longer function for purposes of conquest or oppression. It will serve life, not death. This is not negotiable. In the council chamber, Elder Martha finally rose from her seat. Her voice, carried through systems the Varthol hadn't even known existed in their chamber, silenced the panicked debates. "We thought ourselves the shepherds of the galaxy," she announced to her fellow council members. "We were wrong. While we conquered and called it guidance, while we oppressed and called it protection, humanity watched. They could have stopped us at any time. Instead, they gave us chance after chance to change our path." The director watched as understanding finally began to dawn on the Varthol leadership's faces. "Look at what they're doing even now," Martha continued. "They have us at their mercy, yet there are no weapons fired, no worlds burning, no species being enslaved. They're healing what we broke, teaching what we suppressed, preserving what we would have destroyed." Across the galaxy, the effects of humanity's counterstrike rippled through civilization after civilization. But it wasn't a strike of violence. It was a strike of enlightenment. Species that had been deliberately kept from advancing suddenly found themselves with access to technologies they'd been denied for generations. Worlds that had been stripped of resources discovered new, sustainable ways to rebuild. "Final reports coming in," Admiral Chen announced. "All objectives achieved. 0 casualties. Minimal system disruption outside of military and control infrastructure." The director nodded, satisfaction evident in their expression. "Send the final message." Throughout Confederation space, on every screen, in every system, the same words appeared. "For centuries, we chose isolation because we saw where unrestricted technological advancement without wisdom could lead. We watched as you repeated the same mistakes we once made ourselves. We waited, hoping you would learn. Now we offer you a choice. Not between submission and destruction, but between growth and stagnation, between wisdom and ignorance. Your weapons will no longer function for conquest. Your ships will no longer serve oppression. But if you choose to learn, to grow, to build rather than destroy, you will find humanity ready to teach, ready to help, ready to show you why we chose the path we did. The galaxy is vast enough for all to prosper. The only question is whether you're ready to prosper together, rather than at each other's expense. You have seen what we can do. Now see what we can build." In the Strategic Command Center, the director watched as the first responses began coming in, not from the Confederation leadership, but from the countless species who had lived under their rule. Messages of hope, of gratitude, of determination to build something better. "Should we expect resistance?" Admiral Chen asked. The director smiled. "No. We gave them something far more powerful than conquest. We gave them understanding. And understanding, once granted, cannot be taken away." The counterstrike was complete, and across the galaxy, a new age was beginning, one where humanity's long isolation would finally serve its true purpose, teaching others why that isolation had been necessary in the first place. 5 years after humanity's revelation to the galaxy, the Great Hall of Earth's Diplomatic Center hosted its first Galactic Assembly. Representatives from over 300 species, including many that had once been subjugated by the Varthol Confederation, gathered in a space that defied conventional physics, a room that existed simultaneously in multiple dimensions, allowing each species to exist in their natural environment while communicating seamlessly with others. Elder Maratha, now serving as the Reformed Confederation's ambassador of renewal, stood before the assembly. Her aged scales had dulled further, but her eyes held a vibrant clarity that came from 5 years of learning truths that had shattered and rebuilt her understanding of the universe. 5 years ago, she addressed the gathered representatives. "We thought we knew the shape of the galaxy. We thought we understood power. We were wrong on both counts." The assembled delegates murmured in agreement. Each of their civilizations had undergone profound transformations since humanity's intervention. The Varthol's former vassals had reclaimed their independence, but not in the way anyone had expected. Instead of fragmenting into chaos, They had formed a new kind of alliance, one built on mutual growth rather than dominance. Director Chen, who had become a figure of both awe and respect across the galaxy, stepped forward. When humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel, over 800 years ago, we faced a choice. We had the power to expand, to conquer, to reshape the galaxy in our image. Instead, we chose to watch, to learn, and most importantly, to understand. Holographic displays throughout the hall showed the progress of the past 5 years. Worlds once stripped bare by Varthol mining operations now flourished with new ecosystems. Species that had been deliberately kept technologically suppressed now contributed unique innovations to the galactic community. The Varthol themselves had undergone perhaps the most dramatic transformation of all. Our isolation was not without purpose, Chen continued. Each time we detected another civilization approaching our solar system, we had to decide, was it time to emerge? Each time, we chose to wait. Not out of fear, but out of hope that when we finally did reveal ourselves, we could offer something more valuable than mere technological superiority. Supreme Counselor Vextor, now serving in a radically reformed role focused on cultural preservation rather than military might, rose to speak. His once proud posture now carried a different kind of dignity, one born of humility and wisdom rather than arrogance. We thought ourselves the pinnacle of evolution, he admitted, his voice carrying to every corner of the dimensional space. We measured advancement by our ability to impose our will upon others. Humanity showed us a different measure, the wisdom to advance without destroying, to grow without consuming, to teach without dominating. The Assembly's attention turned to a massive display showing the current state of the galaxy. Where once there had been clear borders marking Confederation territory, there now existed a complex network of cooperative zones. Species that had once been bitter enemies now worked together, combining their unique perspectives to solve problems that had plagued their civilizations for generations. But perhaps most importantly, Elder Maratha added, humanity showed us what true power looks like. It is not the ability to destroy or dominate. It is the strength to wait, to guide, to lift others up rather than tear them down. Director Chen nodded, gesturing to a new series of displays. They showed the next phase of galactic development, massive engineering projects undertaken by multiple species working in harmony, environmental restoration efforts that spanned entire solar systems, and research initiatives that combined the unique insights of dozens of civilizations. Today marks a new beginning, Chen announced. Earth's self-imposed isolation officially ends. But we do not emerge as conquerors or saviors. We emerge as partners, ready to learn as much as we teach. The assembled representatives watched in awe as Earth's final gift was revealed. Access to the accumulated knowledge of human civilization, not dumped wholesale into their laps, but carefully curated and presented in ways each species could understand and build upon. This library, Chen explained, contains not just our technological achievements, but our mistakes, our failures, our hard-learned lessons. We offer it not as a blueprint to follow, but as a foundation to build upon. Each of your species has unique insights, unique ways of viewing the universe. Together, we can achieve things none of us could manage alone. The assembly erupted in discussion as the implications became clear. This wasn't just an ending to humanity's isolation. It was the beginning of a genuine galactic community. As the session concluded, Elder Maratha approached Director Chen privately. "There's still one question you never answered," she said. "Why did you wait so long? Why watch us make so many mistakes?" Chen smiled, an expression that carried both wisdom and a touch of sadness. "Because some lessons can't be taught. They must be learned. We couldn't give you wisdom. We could only create the conditions for you to find it yourselves." Martha nodded slowly, understanding finally dawning. "And now, what comes next?" "Now," Chen gestured to the assembled representatives, each engaged in animated discussion about future possibilities. "Now we all learn together. After all, the universe is vast, and there are still so many mysteries to explore. As the first galactic assembly drew to a close, ships of various designs departed Earth's solar system, carrying representatives back to their homeworlds. But they carried something more important than political agreements or technological innovations. They carried a new understanding of power, of progress, and of possibility. Humanity had awakened the galaxy not to fear or submission, but to potential. And in doing so, they had finally fulfilled the purpose of their long isolation, teaching the galaxy that the greatest power lies not in the ability to destroy or dominate, but in the wisdom to know when not to use the power you have. The age of conquest was over. The age of understanding had begun.